Hello everyone and welcome to month 2 of our 2023 $5 Quilt Club. Here we are. I'm going to get started with our traditional piecing of our block. This is going to be so fun. So if you're doing traditional pieces, you're going to cut out your templates. And for this one, I'm going to show you a fun technique that's strip piecing. So all I did was cut out these and I just glued them together with an Elmer's glue stick. So easy to use. There it is. Sorry, got away from me. So I just laid them on top of each other and glued them down. So just like that, you're going to glue those pieces down. And if you line them up right, you'll see that there will be one line in the middle. When you hold it up to the light, you can see that you lined it up nicely. So you can glue both sides, and that'll be a nice sturdy connection. And then you're going to want to cut your other piece out. This is going to be the black. So you can use scissors and cut out your pieces right on the skinny black lines. Or you can use a rotary cutter to make it go a little bit faster, and it's a little bit more accurate because you're able to just set a ruler on it and cut across. So let me just show you that real quick. So I'm just going to lay the ruler right on the corner here and then cut off the edges there. So there. Now I have that part cut out, and then I can use a rotary cutter. It just seems a little bit faster to me to cut the templates out using a rotary cutter versus scissors. So okay, so now I have my two pieces cut out, and then what we're going to do is we're going to cut our fabric. So we're going to start with, we have two orange fabrics this month. You will either get this one or this one in your kit. Both of them I think look fantastic. So it's just the luck of the draw which one you're going to get. Everybody's going to get this one. So I'm going to be doing this one, and the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cut off the selvages because we do not want this ugly stuff in our project. So we're just going to cut that off, and I'm just going to cut, it's just about a ½ inch, and I'm going to cut that off. And now I'm just going to leave these fabrics stacked, and I'm going to cut these into 5-inch pieces. So I'm going to cut both the 2-inch strip and the, I think it's 4 inches. And I'm just going to cut them into 5-inch pieces. So there's one. And it's not, it does not have to be super exact. So because we are joining them, and then we're going to use our templates to cut them out. So this is a little bit more fun way of joining our pieces. All right, last one. So you will end up with just a tiny bit left over. So I'm going to throw that. Okay, so now we have all of our pieces cut into 5 inches. And what we're going to do is we're actually going to sew this piece to this one. And then we're going to use our template and we're going to cut out the piece after it's sewn together. So I'm just going to position all of my pieces together, and I'm just going to center that because it's a little bit longer on this large rectangle here. I'm just going to center the bulk onto each side. So I don't want to line it up and have all the leftovers over there and have this lined up. I want to center it so that there's the same amount on each side, and of course right sides together. And I'm just going to position all of my fabrics just like that so I can chain piece and get all of these sewn in one simple step. So I'm just going to go ahead and stitch this all the way across, and I don't have to cut my threads in between the pieces. So I'm going to just stop there, line up my next piece, and just keep going. And I'm of course sewing with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. My favorite is the HP foot with the HP plate. Sewing on the M7 today because my house is out of power. All right, one more. All right, once we get all these sewn, I am going to clip the threads between each one of the blocks. You can use pins if you feel like there's too much wiggling of them setting together. You can either clip them if your sewing machine has a cutter on the side, or you can get one of those handy dandy cutters that let you cut all your chain piecing. So all I'm going to do now is I'm just going to press these so that they're nice and flat. Give it a little spritz of spray starch. And so I'm going to take it over to the iron here. And it won't really matter which way you press them. So I pressed mine down. Oh, looks like it got a little bent, so I'm going to fix that. Okay, so that is one, and then we'll take the template. And so all I did here was I just took a ruler and I marked with a pen this line that goes all the way across, just so that I can use that guide right there as to lining up my seam line. So I'm gonna put the seam line right on this line right here of my template. So I'm going to move that over just a little bit because it looks like it was a little short. So really close right here and right here. And then once I have that lined up, you could use a little bit of Elmer's glue. Where'd my glue stick go? It rolled away from me again. And just really lightly put some glue down to make sure that that stays exactly where you want it to go. Or you can pin it or clip it, whatever your preferred method is. And then you're going to, sorry, I can't see this super great. Okay, we're going to use our a ruler and cutting the template out. So I'm going to position this pretty close there. And again, I'm just going to move my template without moving my whole project. So rotating mats are very helpful in this regard, because that way you can stay nice and safe when you cut. Looks like I missed just a tad bit up there. And then I'm going to cut this one out too, right on the bottom. And then I'm going to get my corners here. So I'm just going to push straight down with my rotary cutter to get those corners just clipped real nice and straight. And then we will have our first piece done. And it's so fun because it's not as much fussy, it's not as much fussy cutting of the template. So last month was a little on the tedious side with cutting all those templates out. But this month is really fun because you're just gonna sew those rectangles together. It looks all funky, and then you trim it to be oh so pretty using your template. So that is a really fun way of getting those out. They kind of look like candy corn to me. But, okay, so that is how we do that one. And then when we are cutting our other template out, this one kind of looks like a kite. We are going to, you're going to need 4 of these. So if you want, let me get this cleared up here, you should have a full strip of black. So you could fold it so that you have 4 layers. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So I have 4 layers of the black. Let me see if you can see a little bit better that way. I'm going to put my template right on it. Make sure I do not include the selvage in my project because it is ugly and not any good looking. So this is the most efficient way of cutting it as far as time wise, but it will waste a little bit of fabric. If you want to take your time and cut out one at a time, you can lay this one like this, and then you can lay it like that, and you can conserve more of your black fabric. So just for time wise, I'm going to make sure I'm not going to get any selvage in my project. So I'm going to look through all 4 layers. And then I'm just going to lay that just like that. Use my favorite Quilter Select no slip ruler. And again, I think I'm just gonna put a little bit of glue on the back so it's not moving while I try to cut it. So I'm going to position my ruler right on the corner so I can cut 2 sides at a time. And this is only 4 layers of fabric, so you should be able to cut it with your rotary cutter. These this is 60 millimeter rotary cutter is a lot bigger than the traditional 45, and it allows you to have more, cut more layers a little bit easier. So I do so like that. So if I had a longer ruler, here's my add a quarter, it's a little bit longer, but it's not non-slip. So I'm just gonna use that real quick. And then reposition it, put it on this side, and that way I get all of my black kite pieces out. And again, I'm just going to push the rotary cutter straight down on the top to get those corners cut off. So holding it down, I'm going to pull away my excess fabric to make sure that everything looks nice that way. All right. So once we have 4 of these guys made, it's going to be so cute. We can really nicely position our block out like this. So this is not going to go together in a traditional rose. What we're actually going to do is we're going to sew half of it together like this, these 4 here, and then those 4. So real quick, I'm just going to go ahead and iron out the rest of my pieces that we sewed earlier, that we chain pieced. So, and that way I can cut out those templates and show you. Okay, so now I have all these ironed, and now I can cut out the rest of these. Okay, again, I'm going to use my handy dandy glue. It's water soluble, so inexpensive, lining up both sides just like that. If you're really brave, you could stack these and get them lined up all at the same time and cut all of them at once. It's going to cause a little bit of teeter-tottering with the bulk of the seams right there. So I don't really recommend it, but if you're working on the last Saturday in the morning and you need to get it done, that is something you could do. So, all right, I'm just going to cut out my template here. Make sure I got all the way across. I'm going to rotate. Again, I would use a little bit longer of a ruler. I don't have one here at the shop. I have one at home, but anyway, so this is a 5-inch, which a 6-inch would be just beautiful. But we're going to make do, and I'm going to cut as much as I can on there. So this side is fine. Again, you just want to line it up. Make sure the 1/4-inch line on your ruler is nice and lined up to the 1/4-inch line on your template. Okay. So once that's all done, I'm going to trim my top corners, my side ones. Okay. Perfect. Okay, so there we go. Now we have half the block. So to join half the block together, I'm just going to put right sides together. Solids, no right sides, so fun and easy to work with. We're going to line this up right here. You should line up both sides, and then we're just going to stitch all the way across. I'm going to flip this over so you can see this a little bit better. So I'm going to line that up, and we're going to stitch across. So just to make sure that you are sewing on, I'm going to clip that because that is really hard to see. Okay, so I'm going to sew this line right here. This is when pinning can be very, very helpful so that you can make sure you are sewing on the right line. So if you need to put a pin, make it point towards the seam you're going to be stitching. And this one is kind of long, so you could definitely go for the, for some pins to keep those together. I have recessed feed dogs in the M7, so I know nothing's hardly going to move in this really seamless workspace. So I'm not going to pin mine, but it is definitely very helpful for beginners. And you're only going to do a 1/4-inch seam allowance all the way across. And since I do have this straight stitch needle plate, there's just a tiny, tiny hole there, which is really great because the tip of this fabric will not get pushed down inside and below the needle plate. So I know that it's going to be okay when I stitch all the way across. So on the traditional needle plates that are the standard ones, you can sometimes it's just gets eaten by the machine, and we don't really want that to happen. So I love straight stitch needle plates for that. So once you open this up, you should have a nice straight line along the bottom here. So that is one section that's pieced, and then I'm going to sew these two together, and then we're going to sew these two together, and that will be half the block. So it's not half like directly across, it's half at a diagonal. And then once we get these two sewn together, then we can sew it to that one and make the entire block. So I'm going to go ahead and line this up and get this out of the way. I picked it up, so now I got to reline it up. And I'm just going to stitch all the way across here. 1/4 inch seam allowance. Oh, I see, got a little strip. Okay. So I'm not going to press these just yet, but again, you should have this to be very straight. There shouldn't be anything hanging off, so the orange shouldn't be longer than the black. Once we get those, that looks amazing. Now we're just going to put, again, right sides together, and we're going to stitch across this line here. Just line that up. So if you don't press them together, then or don't press them to either side, you have the ability to flip your seams to both sides or either side, whichever one, and then you can get that really good, really good nesting right in the center. So you can see how the fold right here is lining up with the fold there. And so when I push that down, you're going to get a beautiful seam in the center. So I'm going to hold that down, and then I'm just going to stitch all the way across here. Okay. All right, so then this is what you want to see, is you want to see that that point is 1/4 inch from the edge there. So that's how you know you're not going to lose your point when you join it to the other side. So that is a really nice joining right there. So if your point is all the way to the end, that's going to cause some issues when we join it to the other side. So I'm going to real quick here zoom through cutting the rest of my templates out from our strip piece things right here, and then we will join the whole block together. So I'm going to be really risky but kind of speedy, see if I can line up these seams here and get that going real quick. So here we go. Gonna use my handy dandy glue. A little more glue on that one because I'm doing 2 at once. No, don't roll. The glue is trying to get away from me. Again, lining up both of those seams. And I am going to use the Quilter Select, even though it's a little bit shorter, because it never slips. All right. Okay. Really lightly moving it over. Oops. Again, that teeter-tottering of the multiple layers of the seams there can cause a little bit of accuracy issues, which is no fun. I'm going to pick up and rotate just really, really lightly. I love these ergonomic rotary cutters. So the blade is always retracted unless you grab it. Very nice and safe and wonderful. Okay, ta-da! Not too shabby. Nice thing also is that these aren't right next to each other, so you won't really know if they're off by, a couple millimeters. So no stress on that one, which is nice. Okay, so again, the same thing before. Oh, looks like I lost a corner. Okay, we're gonna put right sides together and we're gonna stitch all along that edge there. So I'm going to move that over and get stitching. Okay, there's one. And then we'll line this one up and get this one all sewn. Looks like that shifted a little bit. All right, so again, nice straight lines there and nice straight line there. So now I'm going to sew these two together and we should be able to nest our seams like that, and then line up the edges, hold that nice and tight, pin it, clip it, you can even glue it. telling me that that's moving. Okay. All right, last seam. This one's so fun and easy. And again, our point is 1/4 inch from the edge so that when we join these together, we will have a nice point in the center. So now I'm going to fold these across and we're going to do the little nesting here again. So we're going to have one of this seam going that way, this seam going that way. That way, when you put them together, and you can press them with an iron just so that they stay, you know, or you can use a Wonder Clip to make sure that that stays where you want it to go. And then you're going to line up your corners and then you're going to stitch all the way across and it should line up nicely. So just to make sure that you're going to get, you know, I'll put that about 1/4 inch. Make sure that your seams are going to line up really, really nicely. I do like to clip it or pin it, glue it to make sure that you have those lined up really nicely because it will look beautiful because this is a nice bold design if you have those seams line up really, really good. So do be careful when you are stretching this because this is the bias edge. So that just means, I'm going to grab a scrap because I don't want to distort my piece. That means that that is going to stretch a lot. So which means it's, look at, like, even after I stretch it, you can see how it's still distorted. So when you are pulling this, be very, very gentle with your fabric because you do not want to pull it and permanently, well, not permanently, but distort it until it gets washed and then everything will shrink and you won't see it at all. But in the meantime, if you pull on those bias edges right here, that will stretch out all of those extra fibers here and make it not lay flat, and we do not want that. It makes it harder to quilt, and it's frustrating. So when you are pulling on any of your cut triangle edges, these will be your bias edges, and they will stretch, and we don't want them to. So once you get those all lined up how you want them to be, so it should be really nice and good, and you check them, then you just stitch directly down the diagonal there. So I'm going to leave my clip in there. I keep reaching for my foot pedal, but I've only got the button today. So I'm going to go a little bit slower and then take the clip out, check my edges to make sure that they're still nice and nested, and stitch across the center. Then I'm going to stop and line up my edge without really stretching or pulling too much. Okay, let's see how we did. Ta-da! Look at that. Looks so nice. So on the back side here, there is a bit of bulk here, so you can press this one open to make sure that it's, you know, not as bulky because there's definitely going to be a bit of a knot if you feel it like that. So I'm going to go ahead and press this really, really good. And once you are done, this should measure perfectly at a 10 inch. So if you have a 10-inch square, this is really going to be helpful for the whole year because all of our blocks will finish at 10 inches. So if you line it up really good, there might be a little bit of extra that you can trim off, and then I would just go ahead and trim that off. So this square up ruler is really, really nice because you can see I can put my centering line directly in the center and then trim off all of the extras. So that way I can guarantee that this point is going to be the center of my block. But if I trim it over here, my center point is going to be off a little bit. So this is a Creative Grids one. It's called the Square Up Ruler. It's 10 inches square. It's really nice. Not as non-slip as the Quilters Select, but still a great resource to have, or great tool. Okay, so that is how we do our month 2 $5 Quilt Club block. If you guys also have any questions at all, be sure that you give me a call, give me a text, send me an email. We're open 7 days a week. I'm pretty responsive to texts. Always answer the phone during business hours. If you have any other questions, make sure you let me know. Have any other tips and trips you want to share? That would be great. But thank you for joining, and I hope you enjoy this.